Good morning everyone, SigmaOni here and welcome to this video. Today I wanted to talk about Eternal Edge or Eternal Edge Plus, both the nomenclatures are apparently correct, an action-adventure RPG created by Righteous Weasel Games and published by Zelda on Steam in 2022 after some years of early access, and that is also available on the Nintendo Switch. In this video I'm going to talk about the Steam edition of this game, so there could be eventual differences with the Nintendo Switch one that are not going to be discussed here. This game follows Cross, an Eternal, a sort of immortal knight, as he searches for his wife, Evelyn, and finds her in a deep slumber caused by a curse put on her by the Skeleton King, an undead being who plans to conquer all of the kingdom of Beor. The only way Cross can wake Evelyn up is by searching for 4 cursed orbs across the whole kingdom, and thus he sets on a journey to find them, and in the meantime, he also helps the forces that are trying to obstacle the Skeleton King's power, and of which Evelyn was a part of. Yeah, I know that this summary feels, well, short, it's a summary after all, but this is the gist of the story. Now, the plot is nothing more than a fil rouge that serves to give a purpose to all the actions you are going to partake in, rather than anything else. The overarching story is really simple. Evelyn is asleep, Cross wants to wake her up, go get the orbs, and then defeat the Skeleton King. For every one of the orbs, however, you have to deal with a series of missions given to you by a member of the Royal Guard, those that are trying to oppose the Skeleton King's plan, or if not, by some random inhabitants of his world, and for every one of them, there is technically a little story that tries to give a bit of context to the missions, but it is ultimately not important nor really constitutes anything more than mere words spouted out to make it seem like the fetch quest you are going to do have a meaning. They are also not that interesting, for what it matters, and this also connects to how the story is told. It is evident from the start how more importance has been put on the gameplay rather than on the story, because the narrative is really stale, as if it was thought only to function and do nothing more than that, as there is not that much effort in bringing things together, in emphasizing certain moments, and in general, in making you feel like your actions actually matter more than a "thank you, you resolved our problems, now go on with the next one." This also ultimately undermines even the characters, because they have no presence nor they do anything to be even a tiny bit memorable. From Cross, to Evelyn, to the Skeleton King, to every other person existing in the Kingdom of Beor, all of them seem more puppets than anything else, as they are never characterized throughout the game, if not maybe for one occasional characteristic, and, in general, they are not important in the grand scheme of things. With this I mean that they are never given the chance to actually show something of their own volition, as this game is really dialogue light, as the only things they are used for are telling the story, and even then there are not that many dialogues, and approximately every character has like only 1 or 2 lines throughout the entire game, except for when the game needs them to say something else for the plot, but when that ends, they are always going to spout their monotonic line every single time. And talking about the dialogues, they are also not that well written. Really, sometimes they do not flow at all and don't seem something that a real person would say, and other times there are also some little grammar problems here and there, though they are quite rare to be honest, that do not help in making them fluid and easily digestible for the player. In general, the narrative side of Eternal Edge is nothing noteworthy, is really bare bones, and even what has been done is not really that high level. The only thing I'm debating whether to save or not is the final, because it was technically hinted in a particular dungeon, but so little context is given to it that, really, it is not a remote possibility that they just thought of adding it because the normal ending was too much foreseeable, or because they wanted to close things with a little bit of shock value, for how much shock value it can actually give. Technically, in a notice the developers announced the release of a new game mode called Go that can give some answers to this. However, I have not played it, so I can't say anything about it. However, I had to note a thing I should have said at the start to contextualize everything that I have said, and that is this game is a Zelda-like, and, well, you normally don't play a Zelda game expecting a great story, more like you play it for the gameplay. So, by being a Zelda-like, we could somewhat forgive Eternal Edge's narrative department if the gameplay is enjoyable enough to not make you worry too much about the absence of a great story. So, does it manage to actually do that? Okay, firstly, Eternal Edge has a gameplay heavily inspired by Breath of the Wild, which is easy to see when you look at the side activities you can do and what you effectively need to do in the game, with a good representation for both being the fact that you are going to explore vaults akin to Breath of the Wild's shrines, in a certain way, and also other things to be fair, But let's proceed with order. This game is a semi-open world, as you can wander around wherever you want, but there are some areas locked by certain mechanics that you are only going to be able to use after you have reached a determined point in the story. We have 5 macro areas with sub-areas inside them. The Field of Ruin, the first zone you are actually going to be in, which is an hilly meadow. The Great Plains, which I think you are going to agree with me on this one, are of course a volcanic zone. The Southern Sands, aka the desert. The Woeful Woods, take a guess at what they are, and then the Forsaken Strand, where the Skeleton King actually resides. In front of these you are going to partake in the main quest to find a way to obtain the cursed orbs, and then you have the possibility to do some side quests, some special events, go hunt down some of the hundreds of chests spread across the kingdom, or to clear optional vaults. Let's briefly discuss about them, as there is not much to say about both the side activities and the main story quests. First, the side stuff. There are not that many, and in general are the normal kill or fetch quests you can find in many products, whose reason of existence is both as time padding and also as a source to earn extra XP. The 99% of them follow this formula, but even those that diverge from this path are nothing exceptional and feel like they were put there more because it's normal in games nowadays to see this type of filler content that can be used as a distraction from the main plot, but they are surely nothing unmissable nor necessary. Unfortunately, even the majority of the main missions end up belonging to this category, as you are going to collect stuff or kill certain enemies to progress in basically the majority of them, which makes them kind of mind-numbing. Just to show you how tedious they are sometimes, one of the late game quests is to kill 30 units of one type of enemy and 15 of another one. What, have we been magically transported into an MMORPG without my knowledge? Moving on, the events are areas scattered here and there, where you can partake in a sort of one-time challenge that, if completed, rewards you generally with a really generous amount of XP and then disappears from the map. They normally belong to this list. Kill all of the enemies, kill all of the enemies in an allotted period of time, survive for a certain amount of time, defend some random nights for a while, and full stop. They are nothing exceptional, but they are a good distraction while you are wandering across the world, both because they are a good way to obtain additional XP, and both because they tend to be very quick and easy to complete. However, they are enjoyable only as an occasional activity, as they end up being extremely repetitive if done one after the other. Lastly, the vaults are probably the most interesting part of this world talk. These are dungeons where you are going to move room to room trying to get to the treasure, an eternal essence which you can then use to power up Cross. Overall, they end up being the most interesting side activity as A. They are effectively useful as it leads you to something you can use to improve the protagonist, and B. Because they are at least a bit diversified, as you need to do some simple platforming and you also have to deal with monsters, so it is effectively the best side activity this game offers. Also, the top-down view makes it more memorable, as it is different from any other part of the game. Okay, now it's time to really delve into what this section should be about, so behold, combat. I wonder if I should start a worst RPG ever series. I would have many games to propose in that category. Anyways, the combat system offers you 2 ways with which you can fight. You can go Musou style and hit every monster in the range of your attack, or you can focus on a specific enemy and perform combo attacks to deal more damage. This would be interesting, if not for the fact that, for the majority of the game, you are going to face multiple enemies at once who are not going to wait you have killed one of theirs before attacking you, so you will find yourself using majorly the Musou style of combat rather than the other one. Also because it is indeed the one with which you can deal the quickest with your enemies, as you are dealing area damage by not concentrating on a single one. Still, the Musou style has the problem that, sometimes, the attacks do not hit the enemies, even though they should, which, trust me, is not the first and will not be the last problem this game is going to have. While in battle you can also parry and roll, so this is effectively Dark Souls in disguise, quickly use an object that you have assigned to this function from the inventory, and you can also use other 2 assist weapons, a bomb and a gun. Yes, Cross has a gun. You have 4 types of bombs and ammos in the entire game, and apart from combat, they are also used for some simple environmental puzzles during the exploration part, which is the way the game achieves its semi-open world, as certain types of bombs and ammos can be found only during certain quests and in certain zones, so this will make you proceed in the order the game wants you to go without enforcing it too much. Still, this can be quite frustrating, especially if you cannot end a quest that you already started because of this, as some require you to have specific types of ammos you may not have. Now, there is not that much to say about bombs, they explode 3 seconds after you ignite them, and they indeed work as intended. But this cannot be said about the gun, as it has a lot of problems that end up culminating in one: the aim system. The aim is really clunky, and this is because the camera control of Eternal Edge is also really janky. It is either too sensible or too slow, and it makes aiming absolutely impossible, or, if you want to be more realistic, extremely difficult to be precise with. The problem is that I think the developers were really proud of this system, because they pushed it everywhere they could. 3 out of the 4 boss battles related to the cursed orbs require it in some way or another, and especially for the Undercity one, you really need to be precise with it, a thing that is absolutely hard to do, which is shown by the fact that I needed 30 minutes to finish a stupidly easy boss battle that protracted itself for way too long because of the impossibility of correctly aiming at the enemy. I'm sure that if the camera clunky handling had been resolved, this system would have actually been nice, but unfortunately this didn't happen, so what we found ourselves with is a clunky mechanic that is constantly being pushed in your face. Another thing linked to the combat system is the aggro range of the enemies, and the only thing I can say is, damn if they are tenacious. Once you've aggroed an enemy, prepare to fight or to die. If you escape, they will follow you to the end of the earth, and they will not leave you alone even if you end up in a room without any door or window. Also, speaking of enemies, there are not that many, and some of them reappear throughout the game in various zones, symptom of the absence of a diversified cast of monsters. Talking about the weapons, there are various types of them available. You first have a differentiation between one-hand weapons and two-hand ones. If you choose a one-hand type, you will also be able to have a shield. If you choose a two-hand one, you cannot, pretty self-explanatory. After this, you have various types of weapons. You mainly have swords, spears, axes, staffs, and full stop, if I don't remember wrong. The number of weapons, shields, and armors is appreciable, and every one of them has their own model, so that when you change a weapon or a shield, you also see it reflected in the game world, which is a neat detail I always love to see. Talking about them, you can keep a maximum of 16 of every one of them, except for weapons, where you can have in your inventory 16 one-hand weapons and 16 two-hand weapons, and you can also combine duplicates of the same weapon in order to boost its stats. Some also have ulterior effects, such as the possibility of healing yourself after hitting an enemy, or slowing it down after hitting it, and so on. Also, your shield can break if it is hit too much, but it is also easy to repair, and it is a mechanic that does not happen that often unless you parry frequently, as in my playthrough it happened only once. In general, the combat system is okayish. It has some clunky aspects to it, and it can end up feeling boring on the long run, but it can still be enjoyed for what it is, and that is a forgiving and non-strategic combat system with some clunky pieces here and there. Moving on, the X scaling of this game is mostly generous. It's easier to end up being overleveled rather than the inverse, and in general, the side activities we have discussed before are an easy way to obtain a lot of XP in not that much time, and here lies something strange. In fact, the XP given by slaying monsters is normally way lower than the one obtained by clearing side activities or by even opening a chest. You would think that killing a goblin would be harder than opening a wooden box, but oh well, at least killing bosses gives you... no? Not even then? It gives more XP fishing? Where is my fishbowl? Following this, the difficulty of Eternal Edge is more towards the easy side, though considering that the developers call it a casual game on the Steam page, I would say it is understandable if that was their aim. Moving on, as you have seen, you don't have that much to do in the world, and this reflects on it, because it effectively seems empty, so much so that it puts into question whether this game should have been an open world game or not. There is to know that making a good open world is something particularly hard to do, but still, the feeling lingers and there's nothing we can do about it. Now, apart from this, there are some other mechanics that are linked more with the exploration part rather than with the combat one, so let's also analyze them. First, this game gives you the possibility to fast travel in its most important locations and campfires. Here, you can rest until the morning or the evening, craft some simple objects and spend eternal essence to boost cross. You can boost your attack, defense, technique, elemental resistance and health. All of them are self-explanatory except for technique, which apparently, as the game gives you no tutorial about them, increases the damage inflicted by guns and bombs, but again, this is only what I gathered. The game effectively says nothing about it. Crafting is also another important aspect of the game. At the campfire you can craft only simple objects, but in the cities you can practically craft any object you have the ability to. These range from health potions to shield repair kits to ammos and bombs, and in cities you can also forge weapons, with the exception of a particular one where you have a blacksmith that can craft you particular ones. It is not a particularly in-depth system, but it works the few times you will actually find yourself using it, as it is not that much necessary to use, if not to refill with ammo and bombs in case you need them for some puzzles. Another thing that, however, I won't talk much about are some specific objects you obtain during the story that are going to enable some other actions while exploring, that are then used by the game for some puzzles or for exploration purposes. They are generally okay and work just fine, they are a decent addition to the gameplay, but also do not revolutionize it. Talking about the graphics, this game is exactly what you would think an indie game in Unity looks like. Graphically, it is pretty mediocre, from the characters and monsters models to the environments, especially the mountains seem to be the default Unity texture stretch over the entire wall, but sometimes things come together to actually create some pretty good looking sceneries. Sure, still not that great, but not even that bad. Also, since we are talking about the graphics, it's time to talk about technical bugs and issues. Okay, from the first one, it is pretty easy for monsters to clip inside the scenery, and sometimes they do it voluntarily. I'm thinking especially about the Misty Caverns boss. It literally went inside the walls to avoid being hit, and I don't know whether it is a feature or a bug, but at the same time I propend for the latter. Second, I don't know why, but sometimes, absolutely randomly, the game decides that even if you have the cursor on the first of two choices in any dialogue window, it is going to select the second one even if you have chosen the first one. This happens when you open a dialogue window and don't move the cursor, and the fun fact is that the cursor is automatically put on the first choice, so I don't know through what programming loops and holes this thing just came out. There are two ways to resolve this. The first one is the most normal one, while the second one is the amusing one. You can either move the cursor and then return to that choice, or just immediately click confirm whenever the choice dialog is prompted. Apparently, if you don't give it enough time to show itself, it works fine. It's simply amazing. I would really like to look at the code to understand from where does this bug come, but so be it. Third, the lag. This game has no reason being so laggy, but it is, which is just a sign of bad optimization from the developers. Generally, it is noticeable but not that much problematic, but there are some places, especially in the Undercity, where the lag really produces problems and makes the game barely playable because of the lag on screen and, subsequently, the input lag that creates. Really, it's a mediocre looking Unity game, it should not have any of these problems. There are some graphic options in the menu, so maybe they can help in some moments, but also, I kept things on the low end of the spectrum in terms of graphic settings, and it still lagged. Moving on, the last thing I want to say about the graphics. The GUI is almost entirely to rethink. It's really minimalistic, which is not a bad thing, the menus are not that bad, though I think way more could have been done under this aspect. But there are some texts that are not centered, see the exit gain text that pops up when you try to return to the main title, and why does the command list and the game version need to be present on screen at all times? It's not really necessary, especially the game version that is effectively useless. Talking about the music, this is the only thing the game does in a satisfactory manner. I really like the selection of songs and I think they suit the atmosphere of the game. From the first to the last, I think there is no one song that is out of place, and they are all pleasant to the ear. I doubt you will ever turn the music down to not listen to them, though there is also to say that everyone has different taste in music, so this is just a personal opinion. The sound effects are instead normal, not that high quality, but also not the worst I have ever heard in my life, and also, just to let you know, there is no voice acting. I needed 13 hours to finish the game, while also doing various side quests, events and vaults, which I think is the average time you will need to finish it if you do not want to platinum it. If you want to do that, you'll probably need around 20 hours, but this is more of a personal esteem rather than anything else. As for replayability, there is none. After you finish the game, if you reload your save you will find yourself before the final boss, so you can continue doing stuff there if you want to 100% it, but there is no new game plus, no alternative ending, so after you have beat it, there is nothing else to do. There is still the Go mode to look at, but considering that I've not touched it, I can't say anything about it, so I will not consider it here. Eternal Edge is a pretty mediocre Zelda-like with an absent narrative, unplugged by clunky mechanics and some consistent lag caused by the missing of needed optimizations. The story is the most forgettable thing about the whole package, as well as the characters, who are going to be forgotten by your brain as soon as you have finished the game, for how one-dimensional or even zero-dimensional they are. The battle system is pretty forgiving and simplistic, but remains a somewhat enjoyable experience for those who want a more laid-back gameplay, while the other mechanics linked to the exploration are fine and not explore in depth. Graphically the game is nothing noteworthy, but still pulls off some pretty good scenery here and there, but the various bugs scattered here and there and the technical problems discussed before show negligence in the technical side of things, which, considering that apparently the game has been abandoned or in any case no more updates seem to be planned for it, is something that is never going to be resolved and remains an heavy hurdle on this game's spec. Still, even after all these negative sides, the game can still end up being an enjoyable experience for some, surely not the highest quality one you will ever experience in your life, but in the end, it is indeed a budget Zelda-like that can satisfy those in search of a similar experience, of course, if you do not enter with that high expectations. Having said this is the end of the review, thank you very much for arriving here. If you want to see more content like this, you already know what to do. I'm not going to waste your time saying stuff you've probably heard a billion times, so I don't have anything else to tell you. This was all from SigmaOni, and I'll see you all in my next video.